Hello everyone. So this is the second part of the discussion. We already discussed paper 1 at length. Now we will quickly run through paper 2 of the Anthropology paper of Civil Services Mains 2022. Now compared to paper 1, paper 2 is relatively on the easier side from my estimate. Especially section B is easier than section A. Many students, questions on section A required students to have that original reading beyond just class notes and coaching material. They had to read some extra books. Whereas section B was quite easy and straightforward, and most of the tribal questions were repetitive. These are questions which have already been asked in the previous years, and there is not much in terms of fresh surprises. Whereas in section A, there are some surprises. So students who chose 3 questions from section B compared to and just 2 from section A, I think will have an edge, because section B questions can be handled well. In section A, there are a few tricky questions, but on the whole, the paper is still again mixed in terms of they've tried to cover all parts of syllabus. They tried to make sure that they didn't leave anything. They tried to include some factual questions with some analytical questions, and they also try to make sure that there are indirect questions. Sometimes they use unique or new terminology to ask an old topic. Like one year in 2019, I think they said Natufian culture, for 20 exam, Natufian culture. Natufian culture is nothing but Neolithic culture. So they use new terms to raise questions on an old topic. So that trend continues in this year also. So without much ado, let us get into a brief, quick discussion of the paper. But before that, I am very proud to announce that in the Anthropology paper 2, about 16 questions have appeared from my test series. 16 questions have appeared from my test series. Those students who wrote the test series would have had an easier sail through the paper. And for detailed discussion of specific sources, specific content for each topic, you can click on this link to join a Telegram channel, or you can scan the QR code, which will also lead you to the channel, where you can directly get the content for all the questions, and where you can also directly reach out to me in case you have any particular queries. The first question is pit dwellers of Kashmir. This question is based on Kashmiri Neolithic. It is a question on Kashmiri Neolithic, and especially you can focus on Burza home and Goof Kral. This is something we discussed in class extensively. This is a picture that I show in the class, so it is just taken directly from my classroom slide. So as you can see, there are pits here. People have lived in pits in Kashmir. Why only in Kashmir they lived in pits? Because in this Kashmir valley it was very cold. So to be able to face and survive from the chill winds in this region, people have decided if they go below the ground level, then they can escape from the winter chill, since they have no heating systems. So the earth material would act as a natural insulation from all the chilly winds of Kashmir. And here, this is the content that I discuss in class. So you can just directly write this content and show that what are the various tools. First, location, timeline, what kind of tools were found, and in specific they found one particular tool called harvester, which is particularly noticed here, and then describe the pit dwellings in detail and briefly talk about pottery and what kind of burials were seen here. It is unique for the fact that people were buried along with their pet animals. So people buried their pet animals along with them. So dogs were seen to be buried along with the dead people. And another site that is also nearby is called Goof Kral. So much of the discussion has to be on Burza home, then you can talk about Goof Kral. And this is another case study about this people. So I have taken this case study from ancient history book by Upinder Singh. Upinder Singh is the history professor from Delhi University and daughter of the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. So in her textbook, she discussed this detailed case study of Burza home people and why they had to go down to pits and whether they actually lived in pits or is it a theory. So all that detailed discussion can be taken from here. So the first question is pit dwellers of Kashmir. The second question, 1b, is these two are analytical question. The first question is about Varna and Buddhism. So Varna and Buddhism, it's a easy question but calls for some original analysis. First, describe what is Varna, and then how Varna scheme, how Buddhist, then what is Varna scheme, then Buddhist critique on Varna scheme, how Buddha proposed equality, and conclusion you must find how this whole idea of egalitarianism endeared Buddhism to the masses, and that's why Buddhism spread rapidly. And in the conclusion, you can also end with Navayana Buddhism of Ambedkar, how Ambedkar used Buddhism as an instrument and as a tool to fight caste exploitation, and how he converted Buddha, how he proposed that conversion to Buddhism should be a way in which the Dalits or the masses find their voice against caste system. So all of this you can write in Varna and Buddhism. Next is Dharma and Hinduism. So these are very interesting questions, Varna and Buddhism and Dharma and Hinduism. You can start with defining the Dharma concept. What is the Dharma concept? You can begin with that. And then you can say that traditionally Dharma has been religion. So traditional Dharma has been sourced from Hindu texts. So you can talk about how Hinduism preached Dharma. Here you can describe Purusharthas, and Dharma is one of the Purushartha, and religion, not just Hinduism, in general in medieval societies and ancient societies, religion served as a mechanism for supplying the values of Dharma, and that, but at the same time, how sometimes religion or Hinduism can create a misdharma or a concept of adharma, how they can create adharma, like religion began to justify untouchability, religion began to justify sati. So a lot of superstitious practices began to be taken up in the name of Dharma using religion. And then you can say that in modern societies, Dharma is no longer drawn from religion or anything, but Dharma or morality comes from values like constitutional morality. You can bring in that in modern societies, what prevails is not any particular religious notion of Dharma, but the notion of constitutional morality. That's all. The next question is safeguards for linguistic minorities. Again, begin with defining what are linguistic minorities. So who are linguistic minorities? Give the constitutional article, and then you can talk about the Article 29, Article 30, Article 29, 30, which give them rights, which give linguistic minorities rights, and then describe also the statutory protection that they get from things like National Commissioner for Linguistic Minorities, and then what are the problems of linguistic minorities, mostly language and lack of protection for language, and as a result, it is not just language. Language is a sign of culture, so their culture becomes threatened because of their linguistic lower numbers, and also when their language doesn't have recognition in many states, let's say, then they have problems in terms of educational outcomes, problems in terms of employment outcomes, and all of these. And then, so what should we do? What is the way forward? Here, give some examples like Urdu speakers. Urdu speakers are the largest linguistic minority apart from being the largest religious minority. And also, many tribal languages come under this section, and others like a regional language in other state, South Indian languages in north, and all of that. And you can conclude that to do this in India for national integration, we must also propose linguistic integration for strong national integration, and that the idea of linguistic states helped to an extent to make sure the linguistic minority issue is largely settled, but still there are some problems, and the right way forward is to follow the three-language formula as a way to ensure that linguistic minorities are not discriminated. That's all. So no big deal. Directly, this is a question directly from syllabus. Then Westernization and modernization. This is a question that I have already asked in the exam, in my mock test. So very clearly define what is Westernization, how M.N. Srinivas defined Westernization, and that Westernization is a narrow concept. It refers only to, it's a narrow concept, and it refers only to, Westernization refers only to 150 years of British rule, but modernization is a broader concept. and describe the nature of modernization in India. Then here you use the ideas of Yogendra Singh. In Yogendra Singh said, modernity has entered India, but it has not replaced traditions, but modernity is living with traditions. So he said, in India, what we see is modernization of tradition. Here you can give many examples of how traditions have existed side by side with modernity. So that's all. The question must be quote M.N. Srinivas, Yogendra Singh, give examples for modernization of tradition. And that's the answer for this question. No big deal. Next, the contributions of Aravati Carvey. Now here many students again were complaining that sir this is difficult, but here I think students are really at fault because Aravati Carvey was asked in 2019. So see, if in 1 year you see that some questions are beyond your reach, then what should you do? If you are a good and serious student, what should one do? One should immediately make sure that whatever are the previous questions which were asked in that particular year, which you don't know, you sit down, search content and make your short notes. So let's say Aravati Carvey was not known before 2019. In 2019 it was asked. So what should one do? From 20 onwards, one should sit down and prepare content for Aravati Carvey. So when there's a repetition of the same thinker again in 2022 after 3 years, then this should no longer come as a surprise because by then you should have drawn content. So Aravati Carvey was asked again. Now many students say, sir, where do we get content for all these thinkers? So this is a book where you'll have content for most people, most Indian sociologists and social anthropologists. So Aravati Carvey is covered here, S.C. Dubey is also covered here, Yogendra Singh is also covered here. So you can get content from this book, that is Indian Sociological Thought by B.K. Nagla. Indian Sociological Thought by B.K. Nagla gives us content for all these thinkers. So you can choose this book and take this book and draw content. So I have taken content from this book for Aravati Carvey. So in Aravati Carvey, the focus first must be on her contribution to social anthropology. What are her contribution to social anthropology? In particular, she contributed to kinship studies. Kinship, she gave what is called the kinship map of India, where she studied how the North Indian system is different from Central and South Indian systems. She said in North, we have one kind of system. In Central India, we have one kind of system. In South India, we have another kind of system. She said in South India, people go for cross-cousin marriages, so it leads to consolidation of existing relationships. In North, we see that they follow 4-clan rule, which leads to expansion of ties. In Central India, there is a mixture of both. So she gave a very famous kinship map of India, and this is a very, very popular original study. So original that even Amartya Sen made multiple references to Aravati Carvey's study to help him understand the reasons for poverty in North, certain parts of cultural reasons for poverty. So Amartya Sen used her ideas to understand the cultural reasons for poverty in parts of India. Why North India there is more poverty than South India. So that, and then they asked, in second part they asked, make special mention of her literary contribution. This is a slightly challenging part. This is slightly challenging part. So this is a content I borrowed from B.N. Nagla. So as you can see, here he mentions about Yugantha. So Yugantha is a journal or a book that she wrote, and here she did a literary analysis of Mahabharata. She took up a literary analysis of Mahabharata where she decoded Mahabharata and used this as the basis to understand the nature, history and roots of values which guide Indian society. So I posted the detailed pictures from that book in the group. So if you want more detailed content on the second part, that is the literary contribution of Aravati Carvey, then you can go to the group and go through all the images that I shared on the group. So here you must quote her Yugantha studies book and Mahabharata, how she used Mahabharata as a means to understand and study the Indian society and social system. Next, this is a very easy question. Narmada man, Homo erectus, just a very classical question. So describe how features of Narmada man and what features make him close to Homo erectus and which features are reasons for thinking he may not be Homo erectus or maybe closer to more primitive species. Then the other question is B.R. Ambedkar's arguments on the origin of Indian caste system. This is a question which many students found difficult because in anthropology, whenever we study origins of caste system, we only study the traditional theories like racial theory, occupational theory and so on. We don't go into detailed studies beyond this, and these are all slightly outdated theories. Ambedkar's is a more modern and a stronger critique of caste system. So students should have given importance to Ambedkar. In fact, in class, whenever I discuss caste, I always cover Gandhi Ambedkar debates. I cover Ambedkar's theory of caste as well in class when discussing caste topic in my anthropology batches. So my students would have already been familiar with Ambedkar, and this content is already there in the notes. So Ambedkar's theory on caste system is called as broken man theory. His theory is called, here you can see it, it is called broken man theory, where he tries to link caste system to exploitation, where he says caste system is nothing but, he says caste system is not division of labor, caste system is division of laborers, and that caste system is linked to Hinduism, and hence because of all of this and the exploitative aspect of caste system, he was a strong fighter against it. And finally he says that the solution must be that caste cannot be reformed, but caste should be demolished and destroyed. So that is the theory proposed by Ambedkar. Next, critical appraisal of megalithic traditions in India is special reference to Northeast India. Here, this was again a difficult question because whenever we discuss megalithic, students only study South India. They are familiar with South Indian megalithic, and some may be familiar with North Indian megalithic, where you see painted graveware pottery. But megalithic in Northeast is quite difficult to answer. So in the group, I shared a research paper which appeared a couple of years ago, where new evidence has been found on presence of megalithics in Jaintia and Khasi hills in Meghalaya. So maybe you can take some content from the paper I shared in the group on megalithic traditions in Northeast India. But this is a question that students should ideally try to avoid and leave in choice, because preparing megalithic itself is quite a challenge. Megalithic is largely Iron Age. So it is quite a challenge to prepare megalithic alone. Leave preparing megalithic in Northeast India. Next, contribution of S.C. Dubey to village studies. This is something that you could have prepared. In fact, I asked this question in my test series. S.C. Dubey, here your answer, this is the content that you can take for S.C. Dubey from B.N. Nagla again. There they have given detailed content of S.C. Dubey. S.C. Dubey is a structural functionalist. S.C. Dubey is a structural functionalist. So we can start with his approach. In the beginning, you must talk about his approach to village studies, that is structural functionalism, and he focused on what is called as the social structure for his studies. And then which studies he took up? He took up one study in North India, another study here near Hyderabad. He studied Shamirpet village, and he discussed how various aspects of the village are contributing to the overall social structure. In particular, he focused on caste, he focused on religion, he focused on family and ceremonies, and then he also focused on Hindu-Muslim interface in the villages. How it is in some ways strengthening the structure, in some ways creating problem for the structure. And then he also talked about changing villages, and he contributed to the studies of, he's not just an academician, he also contributed to the development of welfare programs like CDP, that is Community Development Program. And here he again discusses the overall structure, function and change in Indian village. So all of this you can cover in your answer on S.C. Dubey. Next, what are the methods used? This is again a tough question. So all these three are slightly on the tougher side to students. The third question is something you could have avoided in choice if you could. Whenever we study Indian racial classification, we generally study the racial classification. Students are most focused on B.S. Guha. So here, and Risless is largely an outdated system of racial classification. So, but once in a while, to keep you surprised and to keep the surprise element in the paper, they do go back in history and ask what is also an outdated approach. So Risless classification is largely outdated, but maybe from now on it is important to also prepare even topics like Risley's classification and other classifications which existed at the time. So here this is Risley's classification. So he broke them into Dravidian. He broke the population into Dravidian, Indo-Aryan, Mongoloid, Aryo-Dravidian, and here we also have the morphological features for each, distribution for each, Mongolo-Dravidian, Scytho-Dravidian. So he believed that the Dravidian element is present to a large extent in Indian population, and here we have criticism. So they are saying that he's giving a lot of importance to Dravidians, but in his classification he is seeing that he is underemphasizing the presence of Aryan language, and there is an issue about the broad-headedness which is also not adequately dealt with. So this is how you can address his study, and he also focused on racial criteria. Also he took up some racial studies, and he particularly took up nasal index as the criteria to identify or group people into different sections. So this is another point which you might not find elsewhere. So third is relatively a tough question, so it is advisable that try to avoid it. But in the whole section A, fourth question is something that you can handle with ease, because 4A and 4B are easy. 4B is also easy, just that the question is indirectly worded. So 4A is about globalization and Indian village. So he's asking about the pros and cons of globalization. So you can see globalization has done a lot of good. It brought global culture. Here you can use words like McDonaldization. This was proposed by George Ritzer to study the impact of global cultures on local cultures. So you can say that globalization has affected Indian traditions, and there is now synthesis, a new synthesis between global culture and local culture, and this can be described as McDonaldization, where global culture has not replaced local culture but it has coexisted, and this coexistence is called as McDonaldization. Then it has created many good opportunities, like globalization gave technology, led to migration, increased economic opportunities, generated a lot of wealth, and globalization made it easy for those who found the village environment discriminatory to fight against discrimination. It also created scope for entry of modern values like equality, brotherhood, fraternity, feminism, fighting against discrimination, democracy in villages. All of these have entered villages through globalization. And of course, globalization is not only a blessing, it has also created many problems. So you can talk about challenges, especially the challenges are in the environmental dimension, how globalization has led to increased commercialization and breakdown of traditional village bonds, and this is seen more in agriculture, where due to the intense use of chemicals and other things, we are seeing that village water resources, village soil, all of these are being destroyed, and unmitigated globalization is also creating a lot of social chaos in the village. There is division of people in terms of equals, unequals. Those who are well off are able to benefit more from globalization, whereas those who are not are losing out. So all of this can be discussed, and quote any case studies. You can quote case studies notably by Dipankar Gupta. We discussed Dipankar Gupta case study in our class, so you can use this as the basis to guide your discussion. Now coming to 4B. 4B is not a very tough question if you know what they're asking. So many students don't know what is proto-history. What is proto-history? Proto-history is the period between prehistory and history. History is when, in fact in my archaeology classes, I begin by defining what is prehistory, what is proto-history, and what is history. I define these three terms in my archaeology class and then begin the class. So if you know what is proto-history, it's easy. Prehistory is the period where people did not develop written text. What is prehistory? Prehistory is the period where people failed to develop. So how do we look at this? Prehistory is the period where there is no written script. Then you have history. History is the period where there is written script, and that script also has been deciphered. Proto-history is the period where there is script, but the script has not been deciphered. In Indian case, proto-history refers to Indus Valley civilization. Simple. So what is the question now about? The question is now about Indus Valley civilization in Gujarat, and he is discussing especially international trade. So there is a lot of evidence that there is a famous dockyard in a place called Lothal, and that in Lothal much active trade happened in the period from the local Lothal dockyard. So just mention the evidence from Lothal and describe the nature of trade in the IVC period. There was an outpost that they found in Persia and also near Afghanistan. There is an outpost of IVC, and that probably trade played an important role behind the rise of urban civilization in IVC. Without active and meaningful trade, it's not possible to have a rich and flourishing urban civilization. Describe trade items, trade routes, and I shared all those images and maps from Upinder Singh on this trade routes, trade content in the group, so you can check for more details the group. Next, indigenization, and of course because of this trade, merchants as a class were a powerful section, and some scholars believe that merchants could have been the ruling class in case of IVC. And next, examine the indigenization of Christianity. This is a very good question, interesting analytical question. Here you can focus on how Christianity came to India and how it has been indigenized. Indigenized in terms of its values, the positive part of it, the negative part. Negative part being that it has adopted caste system and all of that. And you can talk how Christianity began to impose Western morality on Indian societies and give examples from tribal societies and all of that. But it is also good in the sense that Christianity preached equality, and Christianity was used by Dalits and the other lower castes as a mechanism to fight against the caste hierarchy in India and to fight against suppression. So this is a very interesting and very, very good analytical question. More questions of this sort will appear. They won't be direct, but they'll call for intelligent answer writing. This is one such beautiful question. Next, fifth question, section B. We move to section B. This is a more easier part of the section, easier part in the paper. First question is about regionalism. Here, just define regionalism, both how is it an opportunity, how is it a threat. As an opportunity, how it strengthens people's assertion, how it makes sure that one region does not dominate other region, how it helps in fighting domination. So talk about examples of regionalism and also discuss the emerging strands of sub-regionalism. For example, Telangana movement is an example of sub-regionalism. Discuss Kashmir regionalism, discuss the issue in Assam, regional issue in Assam, and discuss issues like South India, Dravida movement. So all of these, Punjab Khalistan movement, these are all regionalism. And when they become violent, when do they become national threat? When they use violence, and when they are opposed to the idea of India as a nation. Some are especially secessionist. So when they are secessionist, like for example, Khalistan in its extreme stage was a threat to India, or the insurgency in Nagaland was a threat to India. But the regionalism in Telangana, for example, you can discuss all these in the question. Next, 5B, issues of tribal agricultural labor. This is again not a difficult question. So I shared a case study on the group about one tribal community from Wayanad district, how in case of this community the agricultural laborer suffered. So you can go through that paper to get your points and get your various examples. Next is 5C, nomadic and semi-nomadic groups. This is very easy. It's directly referring to denotified tribes. So you can directly answer this from question from Kaka committee report. So this is a extract from Kaka committee. So you can just look at the committee. They have identified various, just define them, describe the two acts, Criminal Tribes Act and then Habitual Offenders Act, and then what are their problems, discuss their, give some examples of denotified tribes and give some way forward. Here you can write a lot of ideas, especially there is a committee called Balakrishna Rinke committee which went into the issue and which suggested reservation for them. And you also have a model called as one developmental model for them. It is called Bidisha project. This was proposed by P.K. Baumik. P.K. Baumik proposed a project called Bidisha project where he adopted settled down a group of nomadic tribes, that is the Lodas, and he built a community for them and provided them alternate livelihood sources such that they don't have to engage in criminal activities, or they don't have to look at nomadic way of life. So just discuss that. This is quite easy, not at all a problem. In fact, we discussed this in our test series discussion also. Then role of governor in 5th schedule areas. This is very controversial. So just talk about what are the powers given to governor, why, reasons for this giving this special power, and then the issues. One issue is that does governor, should he exercise his powers in discretion or should he go with the recommendations of assembly? And here talk about what Kaka committee had said on the working of the institution of governor. Here talk about governor's discretion, governor's report, and TAC and interface with governor as well. Austroasiatic languages, this is again direct question from syllabus. I discussed this in the class. Just define what is Austroasiatic and talk about the different families of Austroasiatic. This is and one student had asked me for extra content on this, so I shared one research paper on my test series group. So here you also have additional content here. So just describe the various branches of Austroasiatic groups and where they situated, examples of Austroasiatic languages, and then the present problems, present threats faced by this language community, and what is the way forward to preserve the languages of this group. That is the way to answer this question. Next, ITDPs. This is a very easy question. It is mostly about tribal subplan. So you should talk about what is a tribal subplan. And ITDP is a new model of administration. It focuses on single line. It is an area-based approach. The focus is on having integrated development. And again, what is the rationale behind this? We started after Devar Commission report, and what does Kaka committee propose? They say that this committee suggests that this model is an excellent model and that we have to scale up this model and because presently only state of Telangana and AP are actively having ITDP approach. Others have given it up, so they encourage that more 5th schedule states must have ITDP approaches, ITDP projects, and this must be taken up in more areas, more fields like health, education, etc. Next, 6b. Compare the functioning of traditional tribal councils with that of Gram Sabha under PISA. Very good. PISA, we all know what is the, describe the provisions of PISA 1996 and then compare how Gram Sabha is different from traditional tribal councils. Here you can take examples of Pada Panchayat of Oraon and say these are based on traditions and traditional elite have authority, but in case of Gram Sabha it is inclusive and modern, and Gram Sabha is a very powerful institution. So describe the powers given to Gram Sabha under PISA and also what are the issues being faced. Issues is that Gram Sabha can be Gram Sabha's role in 5th schedule areas. In 5th schedule areas, one criticism is that Gram Sabha is, the role given to Gram Sabha is only consultation but not consent. So this is a problem. So Gram Sabha, they are consulting but sidelining Gram Sabha. So many propose that PISA must be amended and the word consultation in PISA must be replaced with consent. And the amendment is proposed to that extent. Next, British policies impacted major resources of tribals. So here the focus must be largely on forest resources and then land resources, how land alienation had happened because of British, and also you can talk about cultural resources. So these can be your focus. So talk about exploitation of tribals in the colonial period and how this has ultimately, don't just talk exploitation, also talk about tribal movements. All of this ultimately gave rise to tribal revolts during the British period, like for example Santal revolt, Munda revolt. Here in AP you had the Rampa rebellion led by Alluri Sita Ramaraju. So give all the examples of how this had exploitation happened, in what areas, examples of tribal societies, and tribal response to the exploitation took the form of revolts and protests. Next, Gurye and Verrier Elvin. Again, all these are straightforward questions. This is about isolation and assimilation debate, And finally, we should talk about how isolation assimilation eventually gave rise to what is called as integration, and integration policy can be seen in our Panchashil. Panchashil is based on integration policy. So just discuss all of that, and that fifth schedule, sixth schedule are examples of integration approach. Even legislations like PISA, FRA are also examples of Panchashil. Next, 7b, scheduled castes, issues and solutions to scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Very simple. Just here you can use the framework given by Kaka where he compares. He wrote a book called State, Society and Tribes. In that book, he compares how the problems of both these communities are different. Scheduled castes are suffering because they are at the bottom of caste system. Scheduled tribes problem is not that they are at the bottom of society, but that they are a different society. They have traditionally been outside caste society, so they are different. Whereas these people's problem is that they are at the bottom of caste society, hence they are suffering. So, talk about the different issues and what should be the solution. In case of scheduled caste, the problem can be by ending exploitation and giving them more rights like reservation, which has actually done good to them. But in case of scheduled tribes, reservation is not the solution because reservation doesn't help them entirely. But scheduled tribes, what they need is autonomy, they need protection for culture, and they need protection for resources, especially Jal, Jungle, Jameen. So all these three must be protected. So in case of scheduled tribe, the idea must be to preserve their autonomy, political autonomy, and through 5th schedule, 6th schedule, special states, etc. And by strengthening their rights over resources, especially Jal, that is land, jungle, forest, and water resources. That's it. And give examples of both the differences. Next. This is again very important, social and religion. This is a question on social change. Social change, just break this part into British period social change and post-independence period, how things have changed under impact of Hinduism, Christianity, and economic forces like moneylenders, British administration, and market. So describe both that clearly in this answer and give examples. Give examples of Mizos, northeastern tribes, give examples of some central Indian tribes. So how in central and northeast India, the difference in exploitation, the difference in treatment has been quite variant. So discuss all of that in this question. So this question is also easy and direct from the syllabus. Next, nature of tribal movements between northeast and central India. Again, very conceptual question and very interesting question, and they are asked to mention current status. So very good. You can just say in northeast the movements are more for autonomy. So we can begin with this question calls you to analyze the difference between problems of northeastern tribes and problems of central Indian tribes. In northeast India, what tribals want is autonomy. They don't want reservations. In central India, the movements are mostly land and forest based movements. So in North India, the movements are, this classification is given again by Virginius Kaka in his book State, Society and Tribes, where he says that in North India, most of the movements are seeking autonomy, like Naga movement, Mizo movement, Bodo movement, Gorkha movement, then the Riyangs. So all of them are seeking autonomy, and as a result in North India, the movements have also moved towards insurgency, supported by non-state actors. In central India, the movements are largely land and forest, some are peaceful, some have taken to public protests, and others have also taken to left-wing extremism ideology. Left-wing extremism is not found in Northeast. So that is the broad difference. And what is the current status? So most movements have met with some movements have been successful, like Naga movement led to Nagaland, Mizoram has led to Mizo. Some movements are ongoing, like Bodo movement in Assam. Other movements have fizzled out. Same in central India, where Naxalism is still active in pockets of Bastar, and other movements like Niyamgiri movement was very successful movement, and movements like Narmada Bachao Andolan were partially successful, and some other movements failed to achieve their objectives. Or Chipko movement is example of another such very successful movement. So describe a wide array of movements. Next, this question is role of anthropology in development. So this is a case study that I shared with all of you on the group. You can take it, which discusses the important contribution played by anthropology in nation building in various aspects, in poverty, in trying to build inclusive society, in trying to promote national integration, in identifying the issues of villages through village studies, etc. So all of that is there in this. You can take that and you can break it down into contributions in terms of rural development. So you can focus on caste, women, poverty, and regional inequalities, etc. All of this, livelihood. So you can focus on different themes and you can quote examples of village studies, how village studies have helped in identifying this, how anthropologists have helped various planners in devising schemes like CDP, that is Community Development Program, or even schemes like Narega. So anthropologists are useful at various stages of program, starting from policy formulation, policy design, implementation, and policy evaluation. Last is a question on shifting cultivation. This is a question again which I asked in test series, which I discussed. I also shared a case study with some students. So this is a case study I shared with my students about how in the Riang society, shifting cultivation, generally the approach is to take shifting cultivators away from this method and shift them to proper agriculture. But many tribes don't want to take to full agriculture. They want their way of life to be continued. But the argument is that shifting cultivation can be environmentally destructive. So this is a case study where the needs of the people for preserving their culture and economy versus the environmental issues have both been balanced. So here this article tells that shifting cultivation, which is based on self-sufficiency, can be made remunerative to other forms of cultivation and if land rights are restored to people. So this is a study of how among Riangs a shifting cultivation model was devised which tried to find a balance between both the needs. So that concludes our discussion. On the whole, as I said in the very beginning, section B is relatively easier, and section A, 2 and 3 are tough questions. 4 is a question that you can do provided you know what is the meaning of proto-history. So please understand that this is a very competitive exam and there will always be surprises, so we must prepare ourselves for them. And like I said in the previous discussion of paper 1, always try to make sure that you cover all the topics in syllabus. For every word in syllabus, you should have content. Don't leave anything in the syllabus because there is choice. Now, choice should help you to handle out of syllabus questions, not topics that are in syllabus as well. So if you prepared for everything that is there in syllabus, then handling out of syllabus questions becomes easier. And second, whenever you find new questions in the paper, like this year, they've asked S.C. Dubey, they've asked H.H. Risley, they've asked B.R. Ambedkar. Now your job while preparing for next year is to make sure you have content for all of them. Next year when this question repeats, it should not come as a surprise, right? And for more detailed discussion on this, please look at the Telegram channel where you will find detailed content and detailed analysis question by question for each topic. So that's all we have for now, and thank you.